Hi, and welcome to another episode of It's a Rare Thing, where we take a look at some very rare medical conditions and diseases and speak to those who are affected by them. Now, I'm not a doctor. Nope, I am not a medical professional or even a consultant. My role really here is just to have a conversation with those affected and provoke some gentle discussion and some better awareness around these conditions. So today we are joined by Jane, a delightful person who unfortunately has a trio of very rare conditions which are related, and that's Syringomyelia, Chiari Malformation and Spinal Scoliosis. So Jane is here to tell her story, a remarkable woman. Enjoy. Jane, thanks very much for joining me on this. It's a rare thing. That's what we've called the podcast.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because it's so true, isn't it? We're a rare species.
We are indeed.
We're a very rare species. And I think, what this podcast aims to do is give a little bit of insight and comfort to those who may either suspect that they're dealing with similar symptoms or a similar condition, or they've just recently been diagnosed. So it's a question of, okay, so let's hear from people who are living it. What is it really like? And so I always say at the start of the podcast, we're not medical practitioners, and we're not here to give advice and guidance, but what we are here to do is just reflect the reality of what we live with. How does that sound?
Fine, that's fine.
So Jane, look, I always say at the start of every podcast, let's just get to the heart of it. Can you tell me what your condition is?
I have Syringomyelia with Chiari Malformation and a severe scoliosis.
Okay, so you've got the triple crown.
I have indeed.
You've got the full Monty. You've got all three of them. So we've spoken to someone who's kind of got two and one, and you've got all three. You've got the scoliosis, the Chiari Malformation, and the Syringomyelia. Now,
Yeah.
again, if people really want to look up these conditions in detail, of course they can do that via Dr. Google, although I caution against that. But they could always talk to their GP or look at, I tell you what, the NHS website. But for you, just tell us in layman's terms what Chiari Malformation means for you.
Now I know. Now that I know a lot more about it, it's a bit. I find it a bit scary now, more so now than I have ever done. But that's probably because I know exactly what it is.
So just tell us in layman's term, what is it? What is Chiari Malformation?
Okay. Well, I my understanding is that it's where the tonsils of the cerebellum are at the base of your brain. They drop down into the cavity where they meet the spinal cord. So they drop into that cavity and therefore put pressure on the spinal cord, which then produces the syrinxes, which fill with fluid, therefore damage the nerves, which feed your nervous system, and cause all sorts of issues like mobility issues, pain, muscle wastage, muscle weakness.
Sensation.
Yes.
Yep.
Lack of sensation. And because the pain is not straightforward, so it doesn't it's not like if you cut your finger, you get a pain in your finger. It doesn't quite work like that.
No, it doesn't. No. You can't take an Anadin or a paracetamol, can you? Can you, Jane?
No, you can't.
Not going to work, is it?
No, it's not. You can't rub it better.
You can't rub it better or get anyone else to rub it better.
No, you
can't. No. Although occasionally I do try and con my wife into giving me a massage in the hope that yes. But never mind, we move on. So look, you articulated that really well, and I think in layman's terms that explains it really well. Syringomyelia, sac-filled cysts that actually do all sorts of disruption, not least of all stop the CF fluid from nourishing all the things that it should nourish in terms of your nervous system, nerve endings and muscles. Yeah,
that's right.
So look, I just want to take you back to we won't talk about the operation yet. I'm always really keen, as I am with myself, actually, my own story, is to try and trace back because it helps others, right? I kind of
Yeah.
think that if we'd realized earlier exactly what was going on, we could have had some intervention, which comes in many shapes and guises, and it's not always surgical, that could have stopped this disease or this condition from progressing. So I want to take you back. I want to take you back as far as you can remember to when things started not to seem quite right.
So do you mean go back to the scoliosis?
Well, go back to the symptoms. So, in terms of symptoms of Chiari malformation, symptoms of Syringomyelia, what were the things that you noticed, and when did you start noticing them?
Well, as I say, within the scoliosis period, I had I would cut myself in childhood games and not know that I'd done it. And then when I was questioned by mum what had been up to, I didn't know what she was talking about really until I looked at my arms or knees and found all sorts of scrapes. So that was kind of, I suppose, of an inkling of,
Because you were
uh,
falling over.
yes, but never thought anything of it because I was a tomboy. I was always falling over,
That's
climbing a tree or
right. It's part of being a
doing,
tomboy. Yeah.
yeah.
It's in the
So
days when we were encouraged to go out and play with other human beings and climb
that's
trees
right.
and health and safety weren't involved and we weren't wrapped in
That's
cotton
right.
wool, right? So we just
That's
did all of
right
that.
indeed. Yeah.
So you didn't think anything of it. So
No,
okay. So
no.
when did you start thinking? When did the pennies when did the concerns start entering your head that maybe things weren't quite right?
Um, well, it's hard to say really because when you think about neurological conditions, I mean that word wouldn't have entered um, my way of life at all. I would never probably have known what it meant,
No.
even though I obviously had symptoms with the sensation and some muscle wasted and of course the scoliosis, but it wouldn't have been put together until I was much older. Um, because it was me. Um, the fact that I could pick up a plate that would burn everybody else, um, and various things like that. That was just Jane.
Mm,
Um, oh,
mm.
that's Jane. She'll pick that plate up. And
She's got asbestos skin. She'll be fine.
that's
She's got a
right.
superpower.
That's right. And I can remember going on holiday um, to, I think it was Lanzarote, where they took you up to the uh, volcano and did all sorts of tricks. And then they put some of the uh, lava on your hands, and everybody was jumping and squealing, and I was just standing there um, because it just didn't feel anything on my hand. So I was more of the star of the show than the actual volcano. So they would have been obviously big signs, but it wasn't really until I had my son Liam and I was 30 when I noticed more things, probably because he was a little tot and I couldn't do things with him.
So
Yeah,
your syringomyelia or Chiari malformation, it wasn't just affecting at that point your sensation and your mobility and your stability and your balance, but it was also affecting your upper torso in terms of your arms and your hands as well.
yeah, yes, yeah, definitely.
And what were the pain symptoms like at that point? I mean, you articulated it very well. Neuropathic pain is not something you can cure. It's not something you can treat,
No,
unfortunately,
it's
not when it's a neurological condition because it don't make any sense. It's just wires that are
right.
unfortunately scrambled. So what were your how were you dealing with pain at that point? What was it like?
Well, again, I have to kind of link it in because of the deformity of my spine and a lot of the surgery that I'd had. There was a lot of scar tissue, um, and muscle damage from that. So it was more of pain that you probably could have eased in some respect with traditional killers. But I was never somebody that wanted to take painkillers.
So
So
the pain started after surgical intervention?
um, I'd had several lots of surgery and putting, fusions in, then rods in, then the rods tried to get out, so they had to come out, and bone grafts, and so there'd be a lot of pain with
Wow.
the healing and the things that they'd done to my body. So the syringomyelia pain, when that really kicked in, that well, as you know, it's very different, isn't it? Because
Sure.
it's gnawing and burning and nagging, and it doesn't make sense.
And it doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't. It's 24/7. It reached 24/7, which is when I started to take medication. And I remember asking the professor of pain management, why you feel pain with syringomyelia, because you're supposed to not feel things because you don't feel heat and different sensations. And so I used to think I was kind of a wimp, for want of a better word, that I was saying that I had all this pain, because the information at that time was that you had no sensation, so you couldn't feel pain, so it didn't match up. And then he said to me that it's not about that, it's that your brain reaches a point where your spinal cord is damaged, so your body doesn't quite know what to do with it, because it doesn't know where that pain is coming from, and it tries to send out messages and chemicals within your nervous system to try and find out what's going on, and that it gets confused.
No, it's
And
completely confused. It's just a bunch of wires and a loom that's just,
it
spilling out
is,
over each
yeah.
other. I want to just, so I'm trying to piece together, excuse me, the timeline. So you had surgical intervention for scoliosis. When
Yeah.
did they discover you had syringomyelia? Did they discover that before Chiari malformation? How did they discover it? And when were you first told?
Right. I wasn't diagnosed until, as I say, I was 32.
Yeah.
I'd had Liam. Liam was a toddler, and my GP sent me to a neurologist because he thought I had trapped nerves in my hands because of the muscle wastage and the deterioration and the lack of sensation. So he really had no idea what the condition was. But when he sent me to Bolton Hospital, which is in Liverpool,
Yeah. Yeah.
the neurologist, who had zilch bedside manner, told me as soon as he saw me, he told me I'd got syringomyelia.
Wow.
In not a very kind way,
No,
but
no.
um,
There can be a tendency to actually, I think, I don't know. Sometimes, unfortunately, consultants can be a bit patient blind in the way that they communicate things. I've seen that.
yeah,
Maybe they've just said it one too many times, and we're sort of,
yeah,
and I don't, I don't, I'm not complaining. It's just sometimes I wish as part of their CPD they would be reminded that they're dealing with
yeah,
people who have got feelings, they've got families that have a
yeah,
future, and actually there's an awful lot of information to process, and there's a way to tell someone,
I
sometimes of
know.
bad news. I
And
think people are getting better at it. I think I have to say that actually we're talking old school here. So I think perhaps
yes,
maybe these days
yeah,
things are a bit
definitely.
better. I've come across one or two that are still quite a little bit on the pompous side, but
Mm.
we'll move on. So okay, you were saying,
So he was just out with it, and that was kind of a big shock, as you can
but no
imagine.
tests. I mean, just looked at you when you got Syringomyelia, no
Well,
tests.
no, he said he did just look at me, yeah, at first, and then he said, um, "You need to have surgery," and
Wow.
then he put it in great detail what would happen to me if I didn't, which was very distressing. But then he transferred me to the neurosurgeon, who fortunately was completely different,
Hmm.
and had got us both in, Phil and I, and explained.
Who was your
He
husband?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he explained about Syringomyelia, but not in any great detail. So it really still didn't mean anything to us. It's just a word, a silly word.
Well, it's an
Um,
unpronounceable word. I mean,
well, that's
and
it.
as I said in the last podcast, you've got more chance of winning the lottery than getting it. So most
Yeah,
people haven't heard of it. Most people can't pronounce it, and there's
no,
very little research that
right.
understands the origins, let alone effective. Well, maybe that's a bit mean. Not effective treatment. Certainly, not going to be a cure. I doubt very
Mm,
much in my lifetime. So because there's
no,
just so few people with it, there just isn't the funding that's needed that you
no.
might get with, dare I say, it's an unfortunate phrase, more sort of more common
Yes, yeah,
diseases and
I
cancers,
agree.
etc.
Yeah,
So okay, so
because
you had the operation at this point. At this point, so you're going in for an operation now on syringomyelia. Has anyone mentioned Chiari malformation?
no,
Right.
not
Okay.
at all.
So you're going in for a decompression
Yes,
on the spine. How did that
yeah.
go?
To me, this will sound dramatic, but to me, they wrecked my life. Those were my feelings.
Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, because um, up until that point, I was, a young mum. Um, although I had scoliosis, I was still very active. Um, I was working part time. Um, early married life. Everything was very happy. I'd had a recent scoliosis operation that had worked well, and had actually straightened me up, a good bit really.
Sure.
So, that was fine. Yes, still had pain, but that would, I could deal with that. But when I had the neurosurgery, I don't know what it was. You see, I've always gone to one hospital, which is the Robert Jones Agnes Hunt Hospital in Gaboe in Shropshire, and that's a completely different hospital. It's like it's like being at home. But I went to Walton, and it was lots of strange conditions, brain tumours, and which affect people's personalities. And I found it really, really hard. Sorry, I'm fiddling to deal with it. And then they did this surgery, and when I came round from the surgery, I I couldn't feel anything from my waist down, nothing at all. Um, I couldn't open my eyes, but then I, found out later that there was nothing wrong with them. It's just what the way they'd taped my eyes up for surgery and not taking things off, and extreme pain in my head, back of my head, and neck. And that's all I kept saying. They wrecked my life because I couldn't walk. I did eventually, I got up walking and the sensation improved. but it never really came back to what it was. I was never ever the same again. So after, to me, they'd made me worse, a lot worse. Now they could say to me, well, if you hadn't had it done, you would be a lot worse, Jane. You wouldn't be able to do this, that, and the other. And I used to say, well, how do you know? How do you know that? After what you've done to me.
It must have been very difficult because how old were was it just the one child then? Two children?
Yeah, I hadn't had Anna then. Liam was 18 months.
That must have been really tough. So you left
Yeah,
hospital, you couldn't walk, you were in a wheelchair?
I was at first.
Okay.
I couldn't hold him, I couldn't pick him up, I couldn't do anything with him or for him.
Can I ask what year are we talking for the surgery?
1987.
1987. Okay. So not too much in the in the distant past, quite recent actually. And what was the physio like that you received afterwards, the aftercare?
Zilch.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Zilch. And of course, very, very frightening because, as you say, people couldn't spell the name, never mind know what it is or even have any suggestions as to what it is and what having the surgery had done.
And so I think that's part of the that's a big part of the fear factor because it is very isolating. It's a very lonely place when you have a very, very rare condition.
Yeah.
And in my case, the only people you could really consult was Dr. Google, and they're no disrespect to our American cousins, they're tremendous, tremendous, tremendous people. But my goodness me, they're very emotive when they write on forums, and also the thing about forums, the thing about Dr. Google is the only people that write on Google are people who've got tremendous stories to tell. They're extreme stories. They don't people don't write on a childbirthing website. Oh yeah, my childbirth was absolutely normal. It was a normal childbirth. They don't do that. They go, my God, you should have seen it was I'm having a day, and you go, oh my goodness me.
Yeah.
So I think
true.
for the people like ourselves with these really rare conditions, it's very scary because there's nobody you can turn to. You can't really turn to loved ones because even if they're really engaged, and I know my wife was, and she really wanted to research and find out all about it, there's nothing. And there's nothing that's reliable. And you feel like you're in this really dark place that's a bit of a void, really, of information and just support, right?
Yeah, but and even worse in like 1987 because there was no internet or
No,
Dr.
of course it
Google,
wasn't.
as you say. And
Maybe a good thing. Maybe a good thing.
Yeah, yes, I think it is in some ways. But when I went back to my GP, in fact, the two GPs at the practice came to see me when they'd had the letter from the consultant. And they sat in our lounge and I can just remember their faces. They were like children that had got no knowledge or almost no intelligence about what I was saying had happened to me. And that, probably wasn't their fault because they would never have heard of the condition. And so there was nothing, absolutely nothing. My sister, Susan, who was a nurse at the time, she, with me, tried to find help anywhere that might, at least spell it, or even perhaps know what it was. And it took us a long, long time. And then a group was set up in Chester, and it was a place called Dial House that helped people with disabilities who needed guidance, kind of for benefits, things like that.
Sure.
And they were, considering the era that it was in, they were amazing. I don't know how they did it, but they searched and searched, and then they found Anne Conroy, who, as you are aware now, was the instigator of
She was.
the support group
Yeah.
that,
The architect of ACT, the Anne Conroy Trust.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was. And I used to talk to her. It was like a miracle. So I used to talk to her a lot. Um, and that's how the knowledge grew. But, and in that group, they had an amazing consultant, Bernard Williams, who you've probably heard about,
Sure.
who Syringomyelia was his baby, really. And it was like, I mean, I often think about him, how he must have appeared at that time to other health professionals, because it was such a rare thing. But he was so on the ball with it. But very sadly, he died. And left us all, because I'd been to meet him at one of the support group meetings, and he said that he would like me to come to his clinic. But then he went and died on me.
Oh, no. Oh,
so
no.
that was the end of that. But nobody had ever mentioned Chiari malformation.
So just before we go into that, the last part of your trilogy, I just want to emphasize something you said earlier. So look, surgical intervention has changed since both you and even I had mine in when was it, 2009. You know, they are getting better all the time. And I was very privileged to join a research group at the Anne Conroy Trust that they fund with neurosurgeons, neurologists last year. And it was absolutely fascinating how there were, you know, I would say about 30, 35, 40 committed health professionals there.
Wow.
Who were really interested in swapping, sharing stories, experiences, best practice, and just asking for help in terms of patient diagnosis, prognosis, and best treatment. So I think there's things going on. And I think in terms of aftercare, what I would say is I think it's like anything in life, really. Those who shout the loudest get the treatment. It's the squeaky wheel syndrome. It shouldn't be like that. I mean, I left hospital in 2009. My aftercare was pretty shocking. You know, I got given, I think, an A4 sheet of exercises to do. And I went, okay, what are these exercises for? They're for your rehabilitation, sir. For what? Well, for your condition, which is what? Oh, hold on, let me just look at your notes. They couldn't pronounce it, and I said, "So do you understand what I've had done in terms of the spinal decompression and the illness?" Well, you know, this will help strengthen your core. And I went, okay, you know, and it was slightly demoralizing because you thought, well, okay, I'm going to be seen by the neurosurgeon probably for review in 18 months' time. But I'm pretty much on my own because the NHS doesn't know how to deal with this. And so, but I think things are better. And I do want to say that if you have just been diagnosed with Syringomyelia, Chiari malformation, or you've been put forward for surgery for scoliosis, don't panic. But it's really important that you understand fully the benefits as well as the risks, and that actually you talk it through and make your decisions with a calm head. And I think sometimes that needs a little bit of time. I think when I was eventually diagnosed, there was this sudden rush to rush me into Addenbrooke's and to get this operation done. And my head was a bit of a mess, to be honest. I think I just had my daughter, just about. I think that memory serves me right. And you're not thinking straight, you know. And I think sometimes you just need to give yourself some time and go, whoa, 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 hold on, and have the confidence to say to your consultant, do you know what? Make an appointment for me in 2 weeks' time when I've got my head around this, and we'll talk this through. Because at the moment, I'm like a rabbit in front of headlights. You know, the implications and all of the stuff that can go wrong. And when were you diagnosed then with Chiari malformation?
Well, it was a strange one because I'd never heard of that.
Either. Another
No,
unpronounceable.
yeah. I got the Arnold as well. The Arnold Chiari. God rest his soul.
Who's he then?
Whoever he is, yeah.
Who is he?
Exactly. And it was mentioned to me at one of the our support group meetings again, the word was mentioned, and I probably did say at the time, "Who's he?" So they said to me, "Well, have you got it?" I said, "Well," I don't know. I've never been told I have." So I went back then after that to Walton Hospital and asked them if I had that. Yes, they said.
So they knew, but they hadn't told you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. So it was, well,
oh dear.
What is it? And why have I never been told? And because there's different levels of it, isn't there?
There are. Yeah. And again, I want to emphasize that on this podcast that actually you can have syringomyelia and be completely asymptomatic. You can be walking around with a cyst in your spinal cord, and maybe you've got a few aches and pains, maybe you haven't, but
yeah,
so don't panic. That's the most important thing. So sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in what you say, because I mean, you said you're like a rabbit in headlights. Well, yeah, your treatment really doesn't sound much better than mine, because they why didn't they know what they were dealing with? They knew enough to operate on you, so why didn't they know more about why they were doing it? And I've always thought, what would I have been like if I hadn't have had it done?
So
Can't answer.
Did they offer you surgery for Chiari?
Well, no, because they didn't even mention it to me.
No, but when they did, when you went back to Walton and you said, "Have I got this?" and they went, "Yes," did they then?
That was it.
Sorry?
No, that was an end of story.
They didn't offer you any treatment for it?
No.
How are you at the moment, Jane? What's your mobility and symptoms like now?
It's not good. It's not good now. I've deteriorated, but that's not necessarily because of Syringomyelia or Chiari malformation. It's probably because the structure of my skeleton, and it's had a lot of battering over the years by surgeons. But I've had 2 really bad falls in the last 2015 and then 2020. And because of the state of the bones, the fractures don't heal.
Sure.
So it's long periods in bed. The first fall I had was, I was in a cast then for a year.
Wow.
But then I went and fell again. Now you're talking, 2015. It's not.
No.
And at that time in 2015, I had to go. I didn't have to. I was asked to go to a conference, which they call it a Hereford weekend, and all surgeons and consultants from all over the nation gather together and discuss. You've probably heard of them yourself. Discuss certain cases.
Yeah.
So I went to one of those, and I don't have any problem in doing that, because you want medical professionals to learn about your condition, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've been in a GP surgery where the GPs turn around and say, "Look, I've got some students here, some medical students here. They're never ever likely to meet somebody with your condition for years to come. Do you mind if they ask you some questions?" And no, bring him in, I said.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I've taken my clothes off to more people.
Hello.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out of the podcast, Jane. No, we won't. Don't worry.
And
so I just want to so there's been a deterioration. Are you still mobile at all?
Yeah. Yes, I am. I'm still. Okay. I can still walk, but not very much. I'm having to spend more time in a chair, which isn't not going down very well with me. But
no,
because the result of that conference was that no surgeon that was there, and there was a lot of them there, would ever touch my spine again, ever. Then in 2020, I had another fall, more fractures, which didn't heal. And then a surgeon came to me and said he thought that he could build a cage around the fractures. So that was another bombshell to consider. But I'd been in bed for 5 months at that point, and the choices he gave me, now this really goes back to the olden days. Well, Jane, if you don't have this surgery, you will die, be in bed for the rest of your life, or paralysed for the rest of your life. So now that was in 2020, where you'd think medical professionals wouldn't say something like that. So I didn't have a lot of choice, I didn't think. So I went ahead with it. And that's really when I've lost a lot more of my mobility.
So again, it didn't help. It didn't help.
No. Well, again, you're in that dilemma all the time, aren't you? What if? So the cage is in there, looking very grand on the scans, but my mobility is zilch, and Phil is my carer, really. I don't like saying it, but he has to be, because I can't. I've lost a lot more again, and I know, what you were saying about being older. You don't have that. You don't bounce back the same.
No.
But yeah.
So look, I mean, you've gone through a really, really tough time. You've got the trilogy. So you've got you've got the gold medal for the trio of related conditions. This is going to sound like a really perverse question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have there been any positives in terms of life lessons, coping, testament of character, the way your children have responded, family members? What have you learned about yourself? What can you take away as being perhaps, the more, I don't know, I was going to say unfortunate positive sides of it, but fortunate positive sides of things. What have you learned about yourself through all of this?
I mean, I think you do learn. Well, I say learn's perhaps the wrong word. You deal with things. I've always been kind of tough. Tough is the well, it's a good word. I've always been tough.
You've got a bit of grit about you. Got a bit of grit.
I have.
Look, you brought up 2 wonderful children. You had a wonderful family, and your life isn't over yet. You're only 70. You're a spring chicken. 70 is the new 50, they tell me. That's what they tell me.
Yes, that's it.
That's what they say.
17. Yeah. I'm all right as long. I'm all right in my head. It's just when you go to do something and the body is about 6 weeks behind your brain. In your head, you can do anything, can't you?
Of course you can. Well, I'm hoping with all of this AI technology, we'll soon be up for a brain transplant. You
never know.
Yeah.
I keep asking people when they go to the abattoir to have a look if there's any decent spinal cords on the menu. But I haven't had one dropped on my doorstep yet. So, but you never know.
You never know. Jane, are there any words of wisdom you would give to any younger folk today listening to this who may have just been diagnosed or suspect that actually there's something not quite right? They've got balance, sensation, or mobility issues that haven't been diagnosed. What would you say to them?
Well, I just say, don't give up. Don't worry, because worrying just wastes your energy. Use your energy to keep yourself fit and going, and find out as much as you can from your health professionals what the score really is. And
if you apply yourself, you're your own best medical detective.
I think so. You keep asking questions. Own body.
Yeah,
you're the best judge of your own body.
Absolutely.
In the main, yeah.
Jane, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for spending time with us. It's been really nice, really illuminating. I do wish you all the very best to you and your family.
And to you.
And
And you.
we'll keep in touch because I know we will.
Yes.
And through the Anne Conroy Trust, we'll reach out and yeah, keep
Thank
fighting
you.
the fight.
Yes, and you.
All right, Jane. Take care.
You can't keep a good man down.
Can't keep a good woman down either. What a tour de force and an amazing example of resilience. Now, look, if any of the issues or symptoms have chimed with you today, first thing, don't panic. Get some professional advice and some guidance. And whatever you do, don't consult with Dr. Google. That's not the way forward. You just get lots of misinformation or maybe just be confused, and no one wants that when you need clarity, okay? So if you're suffering from any or you're exhibiting any symptoms or you have any concerns, two things you can do. First of all, why don't you visit the Anne Conroy Trust website, okay? Anne Conroy Trust. Put that into a Google search and it will just pop up. The Anne Conroy Trust, it's the leading UK charity for Syringomyelia and Chiari Malformation. They're a small volunteer-led charity, but they are experts in this field, and advice and guidance, the support I should say on the website is second to none. Secondly, go and see your GP and get a referral. Only you know your symptoms and your body and what you're exhibiting better than anybody else. So again, if you're really concerned, you've probably got good cause to be concerned. So go to your GP and get a referral. Okay, that's absolutely numero uno. So look, stay well, stay positive, and I'll see you same time next month for more on It's a Rare Thing.